address here, which apparently is the library online.
I'm just curious, was he doing a wget? Did it
Yes.
show that? The second
Yeah,
row?
right there.
Yeah, over here, we can see that he's been using wget and curl.
Nice.
This configuration also shows requests per minute, RPM, or R/M. So there have been 9.84 requests per minute on this. And so here comes a bunch more traffic. So it's kind of a cool visualization. I rewrote one of the parsers to work with. Oh, and that can happen too. That's actually a great example there. I rewrote one of the parsers to work with JSON log files, and they're not that hard to deal with. It's all the code is written in Ruby. It took me a little while to get it up and running. There were some library dependencies that weren't necessarily pre-configured. So one of their claims to fame is if you can tail it, you can visualize it. Okay, well, what else can I get some traffic from? Well, one of my favorite tools is VMstat, which I've done a presentation on before. VMstat shows you statistics about the current system. It shows you the number of processes that are running. And let me go ahead and bring this window, hopefully. So it shows you the number of processes that are currently running, how much memory is swapped out, how much memory is free, how much memory is allocated to buffers, how much is in cache. These are swap in and swap out statistics. Bytes in and bytes out. Number of interrupts that you're getting, the number of context swaps that you're getting, the percentage of CPU time that's being used by the user, by the system, the percentage of CPU time that's idle, and the percentage of CPU time that's spent waiting. So this is one of my favorite tools. And I said, well, I wonder if I can write a visualizer for that. It's not really something you can tail, but it turns out you can. And here's my example. This is running on my home server, so we're going to get much more interesting content.
What did you attach it to, did you say?
This is running on my home server.
But I mean, you attach it to what program? You said.
It's VMstat.
Okay.
I'm using GLTail as a visualizer to access the output of VMstat on my home system.
But
So it's
VMstat, you said that's not a tail. You can't use tail.
It's
But it'll spit out at
it's
regular
not
intervals.
tail isn't a file,
Right.
but it generates periodic output.
Right.
So I massage the way that I'm accessing the output. So and parsing it. So it actually does come out as in the same kind of style as I was expecting. So over here we can see CPU percent idle, percent user, percent system, percent wait. Over here we've got swap out, bytes in, bytes out, interrupts, and context swaps. And I configure GLTail so that the CPU is coming from one side, and the stuff that can interfere with the CPU, interrupts, context swaps, bytes in, bytes out, swaps in, swaps out, is coming from the other side. So you've got these different blobs, I believe they're called, colliding with each other there in the middle. And so as the system activity changes, you'll see different patterns. So right now my system's kind of idle, but maybe if Dylan were to try to hit my index.html again a whole bunch of times, he might change exactly how it's behaving.
I've been hitting it.
Oh, okay.
Unless you're running some web script, it's kind of hard to get a web server done.
Yeah, actually turns the cache request in.
Yes.
Inbox.
Okay. Then let me show another example of GLTail. I haven't actually looked at this video, so I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. Great. But this is another web server. You can almost see these are the users that are accessing the server right now. These are all the URLs on the server that are getting hit. These are the user agents. I see Internet Explorer, I see Safari, I see Mozilla, status of 304 and 302s, and then the content types. I've got some images, Flash, and CSX. They've turned on a feature that makes everything bounce, so it keeps all the bubbles within the one wall, and they're just kind of stacking up. So you can see as these files stream out of their respective place and collide with each other, they're slowly exiting from the visualization. That's really all I've got to say. Are there any questions?
So,
How does it actually connect to the remote server?
Using SSH, part of the configuration.
can you just create one of those YAML like parsing files to tell it what you're giving it as an input and how to process it?
Yes, give me a moment to.
So GLTel has some sort of standard input it wants, and then you give it the YAML file to tell it how to take the input and convert it into what it wants.
Well, this is the YAML file.
Okay.
Here's what we're showing. It sets up as sites and will host a user, password for that user, and then the command that you're going to run. The typical command is tail-f to file and then -n0. So it will begin tailing. Normally tail will show you the last 5
10
lines.
lines.
In this case, it doesn't show the lines. Then the file that you want to tail and the parser you want to use. So the default example comes configured to tail Apache's access.log. But then it also shows an example of tailing one of the Rails production log files. And then down here in the configuration, you specify more information about where you want the pieces to show up, whether you want them on the left side or on the right side, what order you want them in, what colors you want them in, and if you want to show the total counts or the request per minute. Did that answer your question?
Do you have the VMstat parser?
It's not clean. Show it to you.
No, it's fine.
If you want to talk to me later, I can show it to you.
Okay. I mean, because this is one side of it, like, okay, here's how you, once you have your parsers that you need, like, here's how you build the screen that you're going to use.
Yeah, that's how you.
But
build
now
it.
I'm curious, like, well, if I want to use that for, like, our custom product that streams logs back to us, how hard is it to write my own parser for our logs?
Okay, so here's my parser. I got a bunch of debug and a bunch of comments in my code. It's Ruby, and what we're doing here is taking the line of input
Just splitting it up.
and I'm splitting it up into various components, percent weight, percent idle, buffers, cache, and you specify to the match method the format you want. So everything in the output of VMstat is a decimal. So decimal. And then we're doing these add activities where you specify the portion that you've parsed out and that you want it to add that activity to the display. And you can specify various, what are they, attributes in objects?
In Ruby? I don't know.
Various object values, I forget the term.
Attribute sounds right, or properties.
Properties, like the name, the block type.
So you parse the data, put it into an attribute, which is now like, available by name in the config file.
To the object, yes. To
And
the
that,
object,
now
and then
you can
reference that.
ask for that in the YAML file.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And you can also specify the size. That's actually one thing that I didn't mention. The size of these blobs varies based on the size of the request. So these large green circles you see means that a lot of time is being spent in idle. whereas the tiny percent user blob that just went flying past is that small amount of time being spent in user space or system space for weight. These interrupts are scaled in, those are usually in the thousands. Yeah, so you can specify the size in your when you add that activity, or you can just add it and it'll come out as a default size.
And you can parse out into different types of objects.
How do you mean?
I'm just thinking like you might have multiple types of things in a single log file. Like,
Potentially, yes. In the 2 or 3 that I did, I put everything just in one object.
I was trying to think
Actually,
about how
I
that
think
worked.
it is one object. Yeah, because the object is, I think the object is parse. It's been very, I'm not a Ruby coder, and it's been a very long time since I've
No, I don't know
since
Ruby
did
at all, so that's what I was
programming.
It's very cool.
And I figured out just enough to get this to work.
I was trying to figure out what you actually do with the bubbles though. Like, I mean,
Yeah, what's the point of the collision? What's the?
The point is kind of to have something pretty and neat to look at.
I mean, if like,
I think ultimately
Put it on your wall in your entrance.
Yeah,
like,
that.
You want to see bursting bubbles, don't you?
As this video example shows though, so this is their web server traffic. So you can get an idea of what you're trying, you can get kind of a better visualization. Sometimes it's easier to wrap your head around a picture.
I guess you could
especially a moving
see-
picture.
you
Than
can
it is
see
to wrap your head around numbers. So you can see, okay, what's 1,000 transactions per second mean? Well, these green bubbles are 1,000 transactions per second of that size. So visualization makes it easier for people to wrap their head around data.
it's just a different way of, instead of using like RRD tool, to have like a graph.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what you would show your boss when you see
Interact.
Eat a block.
It's not supposed to be doing that.
It's supposed to do exactly what
I
it's
need
doing.
more money in my
The library
budget
wasn't
to pay for
right.
bubbles.
All right, that's what I got.
Thank you, Brian.
Where do you get it from?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's available on GitHub. From
Are there a lot of parsers already done?
this guy is GitHub/GLTAM. And I think if you Google it, you can find it as well. There's
I think that's what comes up.
I think there's about a dozen.
Are they all part of GLTail, or are there people like just have forks full of parsers or something?
Those are the parsers that are in what I pulled out. So that is
I got you.
about 20.
Well, that would be really cool. I've always wondered like what my postfix traffic looks like. Cool. Very cool.
So, Pete, turn off the video. And start talking about stuff now.